Hi guys, welcome to Movie Chronicles. Today, I'm going to explain an American post-apocalyptic movie called The Last Man on Earth. At the beginning of the series, a lone survivor, Phil Miller, is shown who is traveling around the United States for any signs of human life. He is looking for the symbols approximately 1 year after the virus in 2019 that wiped out humanity. During his trip around the United States, Phil posts "Alive in Tucson" messages on city and state billboards in a way of contact. When he finds no survivors, he decides to return to his hometown of Tucson, having a small apartment there. But suddenly he takes his RV and breaks into a residential community with mansions. After that, Phil settles into his new home and enjoys himself in a parking lot by bowling with fish tanks, lamps, and even crashing cars into each other. But after months, Phil's fun begins to slowly decrease due to his loneliness. Without a companion or anyone to talk to, he begins to talk to sports balls with faces on them. After celebrating his birthday alone, Phil heads into a shop with a mannequin inside the glass. He flirts with her, but when the mannequin falls over, Phil realizes he is slowly becoming insane and decides to commit suicide. In the meantime, Phil parts ways with his sports ball and planet Earth after painting a red target to crash his truck into. When Phil enters the truck, he takes a chug of alcohol and begins his plan. But right before crashing, Phil sees a smoke signal nearby and immediately applies the brakes and gets out. Rushing over to the campsite, he sees the undergarments of a woman. He begins to rub them on his face, but then passes out. The delusional Phil fantasizes about a pretty woman, but in reality, Phil wakes up to see different women attempting CPR on him. Misunderstandings cause the woman to take out her gun on Phil, but after explaining poorly, Phil gets her to calm down, and she reveals her name to be Carol Pilbassian. After some time, Phil takes his friend Carol to his house after meeting, where she finds his house is filled with indecent stuff and loads of garbage. While traveling back to the campsite, Phil finds her personality to be annoying. The next day, Phil wakes up in the morning to find Carol cleaning his house, which angers him even more. Carol pleads that she needs to work on fresh food, and he needs to clean his house, which leads them to a hardware store. But as soon as he gets there, Phil parks in a handicapped parking spot, much to Carol's dismay. But more arguing leads Phil to ramming his truck through the store entrance. The following day, Carol moves in next door to Phil, to his annoyance, but Phil soon starts a fight with her, admitting that she thinks he is a slob. However, Carol plants a tomato garden, but is having trouble maintaining it as there is no water source, with Phil later stealing her tomatoes at night, and her injuries and failed attempts to fix the water problem. She decides to give up. Now, Phil feels guilty and knows the right thing to do. He attempts to fix the water problem himself by using duct tape and his Jenga tower to fix it, along with researching water systems. Eventually, Phil fixes it and scores an invitation to Carol's for dinner. During dinner, they discuss the future of the human race. Phil agrees to repopulate with Carol, but Carol pleads that she wants to be married to avoid having bastard children. Although it angers him, Phil immediately proposes to Carol. Now, Phil is fantasizing about the wedding with Carol, which is filled with people, which shocks him and wakes him up. As the day goes on, Carol spends the day preparing for the wedding, while Phil spends the day having a bachelor party with himself. Later that day, Carol contacts Phil to come to the church. He then arrives and finds the hard work that Carol has put into the wedding. But Carol is annoyed that he didn't get the rings, the one thing that he was supposed to do. So out of anger and disappointment, Carol ditches Phil. Now Phil goes to her house and breaks down her door after the party sets out. He later finds her at Craftworks and decides to apologize to her. After that, Phil heads to the jeweler with Carol for the rings and gives her a hammer as a wedding gift to choose the ring she wants. They then return to the church and get married and enjoy themselves with intimacy at the end of the night. The next day, the newlywed couple enjoy themselves with a day of fun. Phil admits to Carol that marriage is tolerable, but he soon crashes his truck into a limousine, leading a blonde woman to exit her vehicle to see Phil and Carol. Now, when Phil's truck ends up exploding from the crash, Phil, along with Carol and another girl, head off elsewhere in her limousine. He attempts to impress her by shaving his beard as well as getting a new car, but his attempts to impress her begin to annoy Carol, who has yet to fix her door. Phil is unsure of how to tell Carol about his feelings for that girl, but soon she finds this. At night, while Phil is having a party with Carol and the girl, an unknown survivor is seen driving through Tucson in an attempt to find the writer of the billboards. He soon sees the fireworks set off by Phil. He eventually reaches Phil and the girl Melissa and interrupts their date by revealing his name to be Todd. Now, much to Phil's anger and disappointment, he returns to Carol's house to tell her about Todd. Carol becomes interested in setting him up with Melissa. Meanwhile, Phil desperately tries to woo Melissa with lies about his favorite things that are actually Todd's favorite things. The next day, Carol invites everyone to a group outing in order for Melissa and Todd to bond. Carol fakes being sick in order for the two of them to be alone. At a theme park, the two immediately bond and fall in love, much to Phil's dismay. Phil tries to shame Todd, and in order to impress Melissa, but his attempt causes Melissa to love Todd even more, angering him. Trying one last time to humiliate Todd, Phil tries to, but when Melissa doesn't buy it, he then reveals his flaws and apologizes to Melissa. Phil even shows her the bar where his friends are. They patch things up and soon find they have more in common than they think and are glad of their friendship. Phil does then confess his love for Melissa, but when she answers him with a no to if she feels love for him too, he pleads it off that he is going to say it to Carol. Now, Phil's knowledge of Todd and Melissa's relationship soon drives him to manic despair. It soon drives Phil to the point where he can no longer take Todd and gives him the idea to take him for a ride to the desert. Driving 3 hours into the desert, Phil fakes his car breaking down, but when Todd steps out to see what happened, Phil drives off, but knows what he is doing is wrong, and lets Todd get back into the truck. After enjoying the landscape, the two return home. Meanwhile, Phil sets up a grievance board to solve the Todd-Melissa problem. It soon backfires when everybody agrees that Phil should clean his toilet pool. He first attempts to work on it, but barely gets any progress made. After returning home from the desert, Phil stays up all night cleaning it. Carol removes her dryer sheets from her nose and admits she is proud of him. He comes up with a solution to the toilet problem by placing a porta potty inside his home. After some days, while Phil and some members drive to go skinny dipping in a lake, the others believe that Phil has been a nice guy and deserves something. They plan to throw him a big party. As they get on the road to a nearby party store, Phil and the two others see Carol's car, but things end up bad for Phil when they all catch him in the act. Phil desperately tries to convince that his lie was a prank, but they all drive home without him. After walking home, everyone ignores Phil and gives him the silent treatment. When he visits Carol, Carol does the same thing to him, forcing him to temporarily move to the bar. While at the bar, he gets drunk and begins to realize why he blew it, but instead of wishes to be changed into another person and dressing up as his twin brother, Mike Miller, ultimately fails at winning over the group. Now Carol has begun to hold a grudge against the two members of Phil's incident with them, but they try their best to make amends, but she ultimately rejects. Todd and Melissa then come over, only for her to try to get them to passionately make out. Todd continues to cook Melissa heart-shaped pancakes in an effort to get her to say, "I love you" back to him. Todd questions her on it, and Melissa admits she is scared to say it back, and she doesn't want to screw the relationship up. The two soon patch things up when Melissa accidentally says, "I love you" to Todd. Todd then promises that everything will work out, with a happy Melissa agreeing. Now with the arrival of the new Phil Miller, Carol and the others attempt to win him over, as such, laughing at his jokes and flirting. Todd believes that Melissa is trying to do as well, since she had rode with Phil on his garbage truck and believes that she is about to break up with him. Todd instead breaks up with her, so that she wasn't the first to do this. Later that night, the other members hear the intercourse between Phil and Carol. The other members discuss how lucky Carol is to have him, and as Tandy and Todd sit on the couch outside, they decide they have to finish Phil. While they are planning, Todd ultimately backs out as soon as he learns Tandy was going to do the same thing to him, bring him out to the desert to die. While the day goes on, Tandy shows disrespect to Phil, but when Phil presents the group his work on the solar panel contribution, an angry Tandy knocks it over, causing the light to go out and break. Now Tandy tries to deny that he broke the lamp, but Todd ends up revealing that Tandy was going to finish him. Deciding that Tandy's antics have been getting out of hand, Phil tells Tandy to leave Tucson. Not wanting to leave Tucson, Tandy seeks refuge in the mansion for days, until Carol invites him out. But as he comes to the couches outside, Phil tackles him down. After that, Tandy wakes up riding in Phil's truck and isn't sure where he is. Arriving at the desert, Phil drops him off and tells him not to return to Tucson, or he will be killed. Tandy is left with some surviving essentials, but consumes all of it very quickly, within 20 minutes. A lonely Tandy lies on the desert ground and waits to die. Tandy wakes up to see one of his sports balls, and then to see Carol. Carol admits that she would rather be with Tandy, as he is someone who could not go through with leaving someone to die. Carol and Tandy make amends and sing a song to her. Tandy and Carol head off in the other direction, away from Tucson, in order to start a life elsewhere. Meanwhile, Melissa and Todd become a couple again, upon learning that Todd could have died in the desert. In the final scene, after Tandy and Carol reunite, he admits that he had a brother. Then, in the International Space Station, astronaut Mike Miller attempts to use his radio to contact a person named Houston, but Mike is unable to reach him and starts to question what had happened to everyone on Earth. At last, Mike soon wanders toward the window of his spaceship and looks out and wonders if anyone is out there. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.